Hi Vamily, and welcome to the first of many Dev Diaries from the new White Wolf team. I'm Debbie, the new communications manager at White Wolf. I'm joined today by Jess Lancillo, our creative director, Marty Outstarsuk, our associate creative director, Diogo Nogueira, our lead game designer, and Megan Markle, editor and rules manager. Some of them you will get a chance to meet very soon at Gen Con. It is a huge time to be a Vampire the Masquerade fan, and I wanted to sit down with the team to talk about who they are, how they're approaching this project, what they're focused on, and why it matters so much to them to stay true to what being a vampire should feel like. This project is still in the very early stages of development, and we are inviting you along on the journey as it grows from fledgling to an elder. Jess.
What's up, Debbie?
Why did we go out and build a whole new team for this?
As it became apparent to White Wolf that they wanted to relaunch, there was an announcement at Darkness Emergent
Last year, yes.
last year, where it was announced White Wolf is back. What does that actually mean? The team decided to start with a creative director. That would be me. Yeah. I packed up my bags, came here to Stockholm, and sat down and assessed, well, what do we need if we want to be White Wolf, right? And the main thing is, well, we need to start with a project. That project is
Vampire the Masquerade.
Vampire the Masquerade. If we're going to take a look at that, who do we need to hire? We had historically been the World of Darkness team prior to the relaunch of White Wolf. And the World of Darkness team were like the defenders, the guardians of the World of Darkness. So essentially all of our projects that we were working on with our publishing collaborators, with our various video game developers, we're all running through an amazing veteran team who really deeply understand the World of Darkness, specifically in the 5th edition. So as we came to say, okay, well, we need to make a new vampire. What do we want it to be? Is it going to be 5.5? Will it be a new edition? Who do we actually want at the head of that journey? We decided that we needed a few key roles. Those roles would be a lead game designer.
That helps.
Yes. An editor and rules manager.
Also important.
Also very important. And then an art director who is not with us today, but Matteo, who is leading that effort along with Marty, who is helping on the art side as well. So we kind of get the core development team together, and then what happens? We interview everyone. They somehow accept coming to Stockholm, Sweden, right before the beginning of winter.
The cold and dark winter, yes.
The kind of winter that even I, as a former Seattleite, was not quite prepared for. But if you're going to inhabit the World of Darkness, it was the perfect way to enter.
It is?
Absolutely. And so during those dreary, dark months, the team joined and proceeded to basically go into the world's coolest research project, which, digging into every previous edition of Vampire, looking at the entirety of the World of Darkness, looking at all of the different various potential ways that maybe we could develop the roadmap in the future.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And using that information to kind of guide the work and propose what they wanted to do. The big misconceptions with tabletop role-playing games that are on the larger end of things. You could think of things like Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, World of Darkness, is that there must be like the biggest, hugest game development teams internally working on all of this. And that's just not true. Like tabletop role-playing games are a niche hobby, a very a growing hobby, but a niche hobby. And a lot of the work that's done is primarily through freelance contributions. And so you really generally have a very small core team. So, yeah, this is it.
And Matteo.
Yes. Who will can we flash Matteo's face on the screen here? Matteo, who will also be at Gen Con.
Yay!
So you can say hi to him. So yeah, we've got these fine folks on the product development side. Marty and I are across creative direction for the entirety of the franchise. What is a franchise? A franchise just means everything that is going to be an expression of vampire, hunter, werewolf, other splats, TBD. So anytime any partner's working on anything, we have a trailer for a new video game or anything, Marty and I will be on those efforts as well, mainly so that we can pull everything together and start really creating a very cohesive World of Darkness into a new era. We do have external contributors that will be joining the project. Some of them may have already begun as you see this video. So that's kind of where we're at in development right now. It's still super, super early where no one's really touched it outside of a couple of core elements, but we have layout in progress. I think some folks who may have been at Darkness Emergence saw some samples of that. If you will be at Gen Con, you may see some further development there. We do have concept art for some of the core characters and potentially locations as well that are in progress and very, very exciting. Marty and I were just looking over some earlier. I think one of the characters I said, yes, he finally looks greasy enough. So
you can guess which one.
Feel free to guess. Feel free to guess which one is greasy enough. But yeah, so we're in the very, what we would call like pre-production phases, but we are kicking into production. And part of kicking into production is this upcoming Gen Con appearance.
Yeah, which we've been prepping for quite a while.
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what did this past year look like then for all of you?
Oh my goodness. Well, everyone had to move here.
Yep.
Go through dark winter. Except Marty. Marty was already here. Thank you for being here. Marty showed us the ins and outs of Swedish culture, which was great. We went and did our research projects, looked into everything. But really a lot of it is like kind of what will be boring to most of you, but really, really essential, which is like building the product development process from scratch. World of Darkness team previously had been consulting on the various projects that would come through. So any of the V5 books, etc. But we didn't develop a bunch of the art in-house. We didn't develop the writing in-house. We, didn't have printers. We didn't have any of these things. So all of those things are starting from step one, maybe even step zero, honestly. Step zero, like, are we going to print things? Yes. Okay. Step one, we probably should find printers. So it's really been going through and building an entire studio and production organization from scratch.
Which is crazy to say about a game that's been around for so long.
It is super wild. It's super wild. But it's an opportunity in a lot of ways, as someone who's been working in hobby games and tabletop gaming for a long time. It's actually really a blessing to be able to start those processes from scratch because so many times things just are the way they are for whatever reason from 25 years ago. But now we get to go, what do we actually want to be? And how do we want to work? And how do we want to work as unique individuals all contributing to us, to this together? How do we want to work with our partners, our artists and our writing collaborators? And so being able to determine that and getting to a place where we're all like really excited about what that looks like is pretty awesome. It's really special.
Yeah. Hi, Diogo.
Hi.
Now, Diogo, how are you approaching the mechanics and narrative side of things?
Well, as Jazz was talking about, we went through all the editions of the game. Like, we played them all, we read them all, we experiment with them, and we find things that were interesting to us, things that we think the lore wasn't as well represented as it was. We went through fictions that inspired the game too, like novels and series and movies and other games, and tried to feel like what those things capture as being a vampire. And we tried to translate that to the game, respecting the storytelling system, want to make a love letter to the system, but also looking forward to how other games do things right now, how the gameplay is more streamlined and how the narrative is more shared. It's shared now between players and storytellers and not putting all the burden of controlling the game and what happens to the game to the storyteller. So we want to empower players to participate in that too. And we also talked to the community, talked to fans, and we wanted feedback on what they're looking for in a game about vampires, what makes them feel like they're playing vampires. And we developed a playtest that we played here internally and with some external storytellers too that gave us some feedback that helped us develop this game in ways that we wanted to do and capture the feelings that we wanted to capture. And that's what we're continuing to do now. We're going to play test it more and get more feedback from our fans and from our community to shape the game as we all want it to be, right?
Exactly. Now, I know that you've mentioned that some of the things that you are already looking at are streamlining the rules and giving players more control of the story. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yes, we also want to make the game. I never want to play a game and have to consult books all the time. So we want to make a system that helps you play more with less. That's one of the things that always guide my design philosophy. And we want to give also a lot of agents to the players instead of taking them away. So they have options on how they fail some roles, how they frenzy or how they complicate their character lives more. Because Vampire is not a game about winning and being the best or dominating everything, although you can do that, but you also lose a lot doing that. So that's something that you wanted to emphasize is like everything has a cost and it's fun to lose too. And you can contribute to the game on how you're losing control, how you're complicating your life, people you know, or your relationships. And we also wanted to make characters feel more unique and the clans more unique too. So we wanted to give players the opportunity to define what makes them feel like humans or what is the beast for them or how each clan deals with those aspects of themselves. Like the beasts in each of the clans are going to be different. Like how the beast manifests as a gangrel is going to be different from how it manifests as a ventral and things like that. So we wanted to really reinforce the identity of the clans and reinforce that characters can build their own stories. Even if they like play the same clan, they will be completely different because they will mold their characters according to what they believe and what they lived through or weren't living. Yeah.
So what do you want players to actually feel about choices and consequences?
Yeah, as we were talking about, one of our core design pillars is like you win by losing and you lose by winning. So we always want to reinforce hard choices in the game. When you fail, you have options on how you're gonna complicate your character life, and as you gain things, you also be losing too. So we wanted to do a lot of like the risk reward kind of equation for players to make the world feels more impactful and their choices more impactful. We had an approach with the rules also that minimize rolls you want to make, so you only roll dice when things really matter, and failure and success have an equal interesting development in the game. And so when you roll dice, it's really meaningful, and even failing push the story forward in some way, complicates your life, and bring new opportunities to play. It's something that I always love to do, is make the game itself, as you play it, generate more opportunities and more consequences and interesting happenings, so you can progress play even without you preparing a lot of material, right? And also we wanted to make the game support various styles of play, because Vampire is a big game. A lot of people play very differently. You want different things. We always have to be like a game of personal horror, but there's also politics. There's also a lot of romance and love, a lot of struggle for power and dominance between, the predators. There are vampires, there are territorialists. And we want to support all styles of play and have options to help you build your game the way you want to build.
Wonderful. Now, Megan.
Yes.
You went back and looked through every single edition of the game. What did that process look like?
A lot of reading. It was a lot. But it was also a lot of fun. I think on the team, I probably had the least experience with Vampire. I played V20 in college for several years, but I have not been as up to date with it as some of the others. So I spent a lot of time diving deep into each of the editions, including the Chronicles of Darkness material.
And part of what I was doing was gathering data on each of the editions to see how the core mechanics of each of the editions changed, how things like blood points changed, how hit points and health and how you take damage changes, and even down to how each of the clans changed, how their weaknesses changed across editions, what their lore beats were in each of the editions. But most of my diving into it was related to the mechanics, just to see, kind of just pull each of the editions apart, see how they tick, and then what's fun about all of those things, and what kind of information we can gain from each of them. And it was really eye-opening. As someone who's only been exposed to V20, it was really interesting to see how the game changed from first to second to revised to V20 into Requiem and then V5. And then just taking notes about all of those changes. And I do have some fun facts of all that data.
I love fun facts.
I mean, I think they're fun, but I'm also really into data, so there might be some people that don't care. But one of my favorite ones was that out of all of the clans, so there's 14 key clans, and out of all of those, only 5 of them had no changes to their disciplines across all of the editions. Now, granted, Requiem did different things with the editions and different things with the clans, so this statistic is on the mainline games.
Of course.
We also found that all of the clans have a relatively equal distribution as far as how much the community likes each clan. We did find that Malkavian, La Sombra, Tremere, and Toreador were slightly higher, but only by like 1 percentage point or something. So, but for the most part, all of the clans had relatively equal love, which was good to see, right? There's not a single clan that like the entire fan base hates or something, right?
Definitely not.
Right.
Tremere!
Yeah, you were going to say, this is the insert of fuck the Tremere.
This is where I cut them off. I'm being bullied.
Yep. Well, but the data shows there are plenty of people that enjoy Tremere. And then lastly, the last little fun factoid I have is that out of all the clans, the Ravnos changed the most, and the Ventru changed the least. Because even in Chronicles of Darkness, the Ventru are still Ventru.
Which is very fitting, right?
Yeah,
was
I
very-
was going to say that. That just makes sense.
It just makes sense with them. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of little fun factoids like that. Yeah.
Nice. Did you find any fun things that you liked or felt could be improved upon moving forward
Yeah, so
for
as part
our
of
version? Of course.
Yeah. As part of the testing that we all did, where we sat down and we played through each of the editions, because reading books can be fun, but it's even more fun to play games.
Of course.
Especially since a lot of us were all new to each other. So it gave us a chance to sit down and just play and have fun, right? You know, because it's a game.
Yeah.
And we got to go through each of the editions. We had some wonderful storytellers for each of them. And we really got to see all the fun stuff. But then we saw some stuff that, you know, maybe we don't like that as much, or there's room for improvement. So one of the things that we really liked conceptually was blood points. The execution of blood points is different, but we definitely like the idea. We also liked the idea of having different stages of blood bonds. That we thought was interesting. So that you're not immediately obsessed with the vampire once you're bonded to them. It takes a little bit of time. What else? Oh, we really liked the struggle with the beast that hunger dice represent. But we did see that it encourages certain types of play styles. And as Diogo said, we are aiming to allow for a lot more styles of play. We really enjoyed that V5 expanded on all of the powers in each of the disciplines. In the older editions, the disciplines really each had like 1 power per dot. Sometimes you might see 2 powers at like 8 dots or something, or 6 dots. But for the most part, it's really just 1 per dot. V5 really expanded on that. We really liked that idea. That's a lot of fun. It gives a lot more customization. You can do a lot more things with it. And then we really saw that some disciplines had a lot of progression, while others were basically one power, your one dot power, then just got a little bit better, and that's it. And so for some of the disciplines, it was not as exciting for those people, while others were really in a good spot and just needed a bit more TLC, right? So,
Exciting.
yes.
Ooh. Now, how did the community feedback feed into your part of the job?
Oh, community feedback was great. No, and I mean that honestly, right? Because there's so many passionate fans, and it was really great to see, because we went through to test, like, what were the sacred cows, right? Like, what can we not change? Like, if we change this, the whole community is going to burn down the building here in Stockholm, right? Obviously, we're not getting rid of disciplines, things like that, right? We don't want to mess with anything like that, right?
Not getting rid of the Tremere.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're fine, but
Looking at you, Jess.
It took some convincing.
yep. Yeah, so, and looking into the pain points, what the community loved, what they thought needed to be changed, or what they were willing to see changed, right? Because any type of change, you want to make sure you do it deliberately and with good reason. Some fun things that we found that the community, their thoughts, people don't like playing vampires that are afraid of smoking, right?
Yep, true.
Because, with the red fear, I think was the translation. I can't remember the original translation for the term, but the idea of fire being scary, even if you're lighting a match to light your cigarette, that's not fun. A lot of art shows smoking vampires, right?
LARPers want to smoke.
Yeah, and and even for the ones that don't smoke, lighting a candle for a romantic dinner, you don't want that to make you run screaming. We saw that the community was very divided on amalgam powers and on frenzy, and that was across editions for frenzy. A lot of people liked it, a lot of people didn't like it. It was a very, very hard line. So things like that kind of show that there's room for at least some amount of improvement or changes that we could potentially make. And then the biggest thing that was a shock to me, as someone who has not interacted with this community as much as the others, was this community really likes to suffer in game. I don't know about their personal lives, but in game, the community really wants to suffer.
It's part of the fun.
Yeah, I'm discovering that. Yeah. So that was the big surprise for me from the community feedback.
Nice, thank you.
Hello, the resident sufferer right there.
Yeah, you're
Hi.
the worst one.
I know.
Marty, talk to me about the art process.
Oh my God. I feel like I'm being interrogated. Okay, no. Yeah, I feel like everyone touched upon what we've been cooking here for the past few months. So maybe I'll tell about what I've been cooking together with Matteo. We've been working a lot on research as well regarding the art, and that comes first into the previous editions of Vampire, and not only Vampire, but also in general World of Darkness. Looking into all of the splats, looking into the art style of both the Legacy 1st, 2nd edition, revised 20th anniversary, but also Chronicles. A lot of awesome art in there. I know I was raised on Changeling the Lost book, which I really like. But there's been a lot of really cool art in there. And also, I'm kind of blessed with the fact that I did work in a non-creative role for the past 5 years here as being, a community developer. My role back then was just basically filtering people's opinions. And because I have a background as an artist and I am coming back from that field, I always kind of had a bias to absorb a lot of information regarding art and the visuals and what people like to see. And because of that, I already had some data on what people like to see, but I scattered even more. And I was trying to see, okay, what kind of art people are really vibing with? What legacy art do people really remember and maybe miss a little bit? What kind of art styles they're like, oh, I wish I could see a little bit more of that kind of art or anything like this. But we didn't stop there because overall, as much as Vampire and other splats in World of Darkness have tons of amazing art, there's tons of great horror and vampire art out there too. So we've been looking through movie posters, book covers, a lot of great horror artists, just looking through what people are cooking out there, and try to basically nail down our inspirations of what we want to do going forward and match that with what the community would probably like, hopefully. And in general, try to, especially with Vampire the Masquerade, because that's what we're focusing on right now, make everything feel more vampire. Make everything feel a little bit more, as you want to feel as a vampire. And that goes into everything from art to layout, really. And speaking of layout, we've also looked into other tabletop RPG books. I've been able to browse through a lot of beautiful, beautiful core books and source books. And we have a library in the office of a lot of fun stuff.
It's massive.
So it's really good. And I've been checking it for things like accessibility features, navigation features, how do people solve issues like tables of contents or credit pages, even basic stuff like that. How does it, how can you make it look more cool? And Matteo has been doing a lot of awesome work on that too. He has a collection of tabletop role-playing books, a lot of very rare ones too. And I was like, can you please take a picture of that page for me? Because I want to see how it looks like. So there's been a lot of back and forth on that. And we've been, I do recall we have one of the mood boards that is just tabletop role-playing layouts. And it's cool stuff that people are doing.
I will say we have mood boards for almost all of the splats. I look at them sometimes if I'm having a hard day, and I just remind myself of how amazing this team has been to just be like, okay, no, we're going to look at the entire World of Darkness. Yes, we have this one project, but we want to put it all in context. We want everything to feel like its own thing, but all within the same world. I come from a strong world building background, so I'm thinking about what is this world? What are the commonalities that it has? And how does it feel different and express itself differently per splat? But oh my gosh, the mood boards are outstanding, and I couldn't be happier. As an art person, I came up on the art side myself. So as an art person, just looking at the work that Marty and Matteo and the whole team have been doing on gathering that reference and putting it together has been just an absolute privilege.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that also goes into typography and colors, something that maybe the community will remember, because that's dear to my heart. Back in the days, we used to we released the mood boards for the clans and the color mood boards for the clans. And I remember very fondly how when we released the color palettes for the clans, we got so much really cool fun art that people were posting later with their OCs in the clan colors. So that also came into the part of the research of what colors do people associate with a particular clan? What is the first color we think about when we think Malkavian or Tremere or Toreador? And that came into the wonderful work that Diogo has been doing in trying to keep the clans different from each other and stand out. So we kind of bounce from each other in okay, so how do we want to make this stand out a little bit more visually? And then Diogo did it mechanically. So yeah, it all felt together nicely.
Wonderful. And what would you say that all of this research is leading up to?
A lot of interesting conclusions. One of the things which I think is the main difference, I think that you'll see from, maybe not from the latest V5 books, because if you've been checking the latest source books, they're a little bit more in line of what we are aiming for, but originally 5th edition was very heavy on photography, and we do like photography. Of course, photography is a beautiful art form, but we thought that, and especially based on a lot of community feedback, but also based on our mood boards and what is happening out there in horror, that in tabletop role-playing games, it is a little bit harder to associate yourself and your character with someone who is displayed on the photography rather than on an illustration. And it's the same goes with, showcasing powers, showcasing how things work in the world. You do want to kind of transport yourself to a different dimension, even though we're still, the World of Darkness is set in the real world, right? But I do recall, a lot of the awesome art and, video games and things from the past of World of Darkness, where it was our world, but a little bit more gothic. It was a little bit more dark in a gothic sense of dark, right? So buildings seemed a little bit taller, shadows were a little bit longer. So we kind of moved out from using photography, and we are going to focus on illustrations going forward. And when it comes to the style of illustration that we've been looking into, you might have seen if you were on Darkness Emergent that we've been exploring some of the classic original black and white art. That's not the only thing we're doing, of course. There's going to be like beautiful colored artworks that we put a lot of focus on, but we do want to sprinkle it a little bit with the legacy feeling of having those black and white inked things coming in as well. So yeah, that's something we've been looking for.
Part of the love letter.
Yes, part of the love letter to the legacy of World of Darkness, I think. Like I personally always love the black and white artworks. I do have the poster collection from Tim Bradstreet on my desk, and that's something I look at like all the time. It's just something that I really love. But there are also like a lot of other artists that art for the first edition that I've been looking into as well. But apart from that, and I think that goes into it, and that should be self-explanatory, but a very important part is also that when people, get those beautiful tabletop role-playing books on their tables and pay a lot of money for it, they want to see human-made art. And that is a commitment that we really want to have, and that we are doing basically with what the art that we are commissioning. We are looking for a lot of artists that like digital art is great, and we are using a lot of digital artists, but also some traditional artwork as well, because that's really cool, especially these days in the era of AI just making it difficult for all of us digital artists. But apart from that, there's additional, like, more boring thing, as Jess was saying before, when we are setting up our pipelines. This may sound boring, but it's actually a very big and important part of this process, because when we are able to establish our own art pipelines, there's a lot more direction to it. We can actually have a lot more impact of what makes it to the book. And that goes into, for example, the fact that our artist pipeline has stages. We are going to see the sketches, we're going to see the rough colors and the finals. So we will see the art in progress. We will not only see the final, which is very important in this era of artificial intelligence going into the artworks. And additionally, we are also developing concept art, which is normally something that you may associate with video games, but I think it's very important when you think about, say, key characters that we know and love from the books, and to make sure that they look similar and they have the same vibe across all of our products. We think it's very important. We don't want to have another 20 versions of Victoria Ash.
Much as we love them, I
Yes.
agree. Yes.
Yes, we want to make sure that characters like this are represented correctly across the spots, and they do have like those very iconic silhouettes, iconic clothing, and that people will be able to recognize them from a distance. So yeah, that's what we're looking into.
Wonderful.
Just to add on to the concept art pipeline as well, which is super cool, so amazing. I mean, so many of these characters are iconic to me. Like, we were just talking about one earlier where I was like, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to see a really consistent illustration of this particular character that has been around for quite some time. And it's not so much that like the expectation is that the character will always look exactly the same, because it's going to be, we want to be able to have the character seen and drawn in different hands, be able to be in a, say, a television show, in an animated series, in a video game, in a tabletop role-playing book, but maybe done by a watercolorist versus, a digital illustrator versus a more like Dutch master's oil painter or whatever. But they're always you're going to tell that their silhouette is the same, and that they're going to have kind of touch points where you're like, yes, I totally read that this is the same person. That way we're never locking out, diverse casting or anything like that from anything that we're trying to do. We just want to make sure that everyone is like, yes, we know this character, we love them. They always are giving us a consistent experience until, we do something terrible to them and we have to change their silhouette because we've merged their body with someone else's or something terrible like that.
Yep. One more thing regarding the art and how what we want to showcase in our books. We actually want to showcase the mechanics and what people can do in the game, because I don't think we had that much of the artwork, and we've been like looking into it because some, let's say, video game developer asked us, how does that thing look like? How does this discipline power look like? So we haven't had a lot of these in the recent art that we have had in our books. So we're looking into actually showcasing what Diogo and the team is writing in practice, in the art.
Wonderful.
It's no mystery to anyone that I'm a big Dark Ages guy. One of the things that I love about it is if you look in those Legacy Dark Ages books, those like really high level discipline powers, they're just expressed that in a way where you see how the power could be used. It's not restrictive and it's like, oh, this is the only way you could ever possibly depict this. And it also shows the world building and, you know, using that kind of style as a jumping off point of like, hey, this is an actual location in the world of darkness, and this is someone actually using the powers, and this is an interpretation of how it could look, I think is really awesome. And working through that on the concept art phase has been really, really exciting.
It's very cool whenever I get to walk past your computer and see something I barely understand, but that looks very cool.
Pictures are easier to see from across the room than text, yes.
Yes.
So it is the blessing and the curse on the art side that everyone is always going to walk past and be like, ooh, ah, or, oh, I have feelings about that. Whereas you're just like, oh, look at my tiny words. You have no idea what they say.
I try not to do
I
that.
need to take away your microphone because this is literally why I always cry that my desktop is in the very middle of a team. So everyone can give me feedback at any time. And I sometimes just climb on my desk and hide the screen with my own body. And I'm like, please don't look yet. I haven't finished this art. It's not done.
You get to experience what every other illustrator in hobby gaming has experienced with me, where they're like, I need to hide this from you until it's done.
Until it's done. All right. I want to thank all of you for sitting down with me. That is all that you're going to get in this first of many Dev Diaries. Number one. Number one. And we'll see how many we end up with, but there's going to be a lot.
You're number one, Debbie.
You are number one.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I want to reiterate that this is still, as you can tell, in very early development. If you are watching this, you are part of a very exclusive domain. We've got about a dozen playtests at Gen Con 2026, run by some people from our team and a hand-picked group of storytellers from the community. So keep your eyes peeled for that. They're all already sold out. Thank you all so much for that. But don't worry if you can't make it to Gen Con. We've got more playtests and more feedback opportunities coming very soon. We are also holding a panel at Gen Con called The Future of White Wolf, where you will find out more about where Jess and the rest of the team is taking us along for the journey and what we're gonna do. Ooh.
More details soon.
That is an unfortunate sentence that we have to say a lot when you are this early in development stage. It's just the way it is.
We also wish it was done. We do. I would really just wish I could hit the fast forward button because I'm so excited. Every single time we have an update every week, I'm just like, why is this not already just a real thing that we can show everyone and play? But that's part of it, is bringing you all along on the process.
And that's very exciting. For the panel, we are unfortunately not able to record the whole thing, but we will make sure to bring everything in future Dev Diaries, so you will not miss a single thing. Something that we are able to record and stream, however, is the actual play based on this playtest that is going to be at Gen Con, and it is going to be hosted and story told by Alexander Ward. So we're kind of excited about that. Just a little bit. So that will be up on our YouTube as soon as we're able to, basically. But that is all for today. So until next time, share this with all of your friends. Let us know what you think, and bye.
Oh! Sorry.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sweating. If I'm shiny, I'm losing presents.
You along for the journey as it grows from.
Who is Flum? Didn't you see Hotel Transylvania? Vampires don't say blah blah blah.
What is your wolf noise? That's your wolf. You need to get off of Omegaverse Twitter, dude.
Stare at me, everyone. Jesus. Yes.
No, we're supposed to be like.
Yeah, that's so natural.
No, it's better this way.
It is so much better this way. I would have joined if you'd given me any heads up because I would have loved to see Jess's face of just cringe and dying inside.
Bye.
Bye.